Thank you so much for tuning in to She's All Over the Place with Kiriaki. That's me. Welcome back. Zach Damon is an award-winning producer, broadcaster, actor, and filmmaker. Zach is currently the producer, co-writer, and host of Ann Arbor Tonight, Ann Arbor, Michigan's first late-night audience. Ann Arbor, Michigan's first late-night live audience, televised variety show. The show is currently in its 7th season of production. He is also a voice talent for a subsidiary of iHeartMedia, who indicates more than 100 radio programs and services, more than 7,100 radio affiliations, and reaches 250 million listeners monthly. His voice can be heard on stations all across the United States and Canada. He is also the owner of Zach Damon Productions, LLC, which was established in 2012, and produces local television, radio, and web-based media content for distribution. The business was formed to make educational, informative, and entertaining media content. Zach Damon Productions is based in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I am so excited to welcome my dear friend, Zach, to the show. Zach, how are you?
Katie, I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure, of course. Yay, we're here in Michigan together. It's so cool and so exciting.
It is. And I can't tell you how wonderful it is to just see you and be back. Thank you.
Yeah. So you're a producer, broadcaster, actor, and filmmaker. And today we're going to be talking about a variety of topics, and it's so impactful that we're actually not going to probably get into everything today. So I definitely already know I'm going to want to have you back on the show. But let's do the best that we can. How about that?
Sounds good. And thank you so much for just being so complimentary. It means a lot.
Yeah. So let's talk about your roots. Like, where are you from? And then what was that intuitive hit for you that you knew like it was entertainment? Like, how did it happen for you? What were your inspirations?
Great question. So I would say that aha moment that I knew that show business was for me, probably when I was about 6 years old. I was very fortunate to be involved with the March of Dimes organization early on, doing some public speaking and volunteering, doing different engagements. And from there, I was named a Goodwill Ambassador for a good amount of time. So traveled around the state and did a bunch of speaking engagements on behalf of the March of Dimes organization, which works to promote, premature birth and the different research and development that they do as well. So that really started it for me, just being around those in the entertainment industry early on and saying, hey, this is really a great industry. And, I really enjoyed it from there. And then after that, getting that opportunity, understanding that although I was around media figures at a young age, understanding how important it was to get the education, to be able to hone the craft if that's really what I wanted to do, and loved every minute of it.
Okay, very cool. And I know you're a part of a lot of organizations and charities, and you just mentioned March of Dimes, but for the people who are tuning in and maybe, you gave a brushstroke, but could you give more details of March of Dimes and what they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the March of Dimes organization is a national organization, and they basically raise money for research for babies with premature birth defects.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that's those that have been, like myself, born with cerebral palsy, which cerebral palsy is, it happens because the babies are born premature, and that's damage to the cerebellum, which is the part of the brain that deals with muscular coordination, walking, and also speech. And it's unfortunately one of the most common disabilities in the United States, actually. It's a bit of an old statistic, but I believe as of 2016, there were over 250,000 cases of cerebral palsy in the United States. But the March of Dimes doing great things with premature birth research, and definitely am grateful.
Yeah, I'm grateful for you. Thanks for sharing. And, I've known you literally, I think, for over 2 decades now. We've been friends, I think, for over 2 decades.
Oh, that's right. You definitely have all the dirt. I'll say that.
I do. Yeah, all the clean dirt. But one of the things I really admire about you is your speech, your diction. So, you're well-spoken, well-versed, well-educated. And so, wow. Interesting. So was that a part of your journey for, language, growing up in your education? Were you like more heightened and kind of sensitive in those areas for you to kind of maybe overcompensate and overlearn and overdo things? Because I know when I'm maybe aware, for example, me, if it's the same or kind of a brushstroke of same, like English was my favorite subject. I grew up as a poet. I loved reading and language. And, I just felt less than in such a way for some other insecure reasons, or if something was said to you. And, as a child, we take that on to be so true. And then we take it with us. So, when we're sensitive and aware of these certain things, sometimes I over articulate or over communicate, and people have talked to me about my enunciation in such a way. And I mean, I went off to do the auto show. So, I was speaking in front of thousands of people, and it was all about sound, vibration, how I'm using my voice. So do you want to talk about, and because that for you, and I mean, and then how that applies to the craft of who we are as a voice talent and being an actor in entertainment? It's all about sound and speech, and it kind of all really goes hand in hand. So do you want to share like your journey experience for you?
Oh, absolutely. And you bring up so many great points, especially with addiction and vibration and how you speak, because to the audience members listening right now, we care and we want you to be enlightened by listening to this, and also the message that Katie has on this wonderful podcast. But yes, exactly. I think growing up, I didn't necessarily know that specifically, right? That communications or that the arts was going to be the avenue of which it could kind of elevate my contribution to society in many different ways. Because being born, with a physical disability and cerebral palsy, of course, I couldn't play hockey even though I wanted to, or I couldn't be the aggressive skater that I wanted to be in the 90s or different things. But, I could contribute in other ways. And I think, my family had the foresight of that. They said, no, Zach, you can do so many other great things, because language is the backbone of what we do, right? Mm-hmm. Writing and diction and language, that is a backbone of entertainment, and it's a backbone of what we do. So if we can master language in terms of speaking, but also writing, then that can be a huge, great skill. And also reading and knowing the knowledge of those that have come before us too, so that we can respect the history of different things. Absolutely. So I think my family was very instrumental in sort of knowing that before I did, but giving me the resources to be able to hone those skills. I used an OT a lot as well growing up. So they taught me a lot about speech, but also writing and different things, because I had issues with wrist dexterity. So learning cursive, I don't know if they still learn cursive nowadays.
I love cursive. Yeah, I have a short story. So one time when I was, I did parts modeling, and so I was a hand model, and it was American greeting cards, and they wanted cursive. And, really? And I got booked on the job because they loved my cursive. Because of loving language. It goes with penmanship and the vibes of being like a painter, an artist, and how you write. Sure. Right. Yeah. And so they give an example of what they wanted, and I looked it up, and then I practiced it, and I sent it in, and I got cast. Obviously my hand had something to do with it as well, but the penmanship, when you're, you mentioned diction and voice and the backbone. So that intelligence of what the history of what you learned, and then through your own sound and vibration, and you share that, it's the intelligence of the history and the information is going into evolution of being forward as a creative, as an entertainer. So I think that's really cool. And then speaking of the penmanship, so when you write, do you have the time on the laptop, or do you write with on a journal? How is it for you with when you say writing in 2023? Yo,
that's a great question. So I am old school. I still write in a notebook every day, and I write my goals out for what I want to accomplish every single day, and I write them out physically, because I just find that muscle memory, and I do that for lines too, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sure, I don't know if you've done that with lines for different parts. Yeah, exactly. Blue shirt. Yes, yeah. Blue shirt. Yeah. So exactly. And so I definitely do that. And I find that the muscle memory of just writing out important things helps me to memorize them. So I do write things, but I also, do hybrid. I use a lot of the laptop as well. But I think, just to me, just the act of writing out your thoughts, writing out your goals, and then just writing out things that are important to you really helps. But again, I give my family credit for that technique as well. Yeah. And very, very grateful.
You get into a flow state when you're writing. As a writer, as a poet, I was actually, before we met up, I wrote 4 poems.
Oh my gosh.
The 4th one was made me go to tears. Oh man. But I had to sit down and start and focus and do it. So sometimes I'm in a flow, I'm doing it, and then sometimes I won't do it for a while. And it's this internal battle, but it's a discipline, and it's important, like you said, the muscle, because it develops, and it's the muscle memory, and it supports us in our craft, through education. You mentioned OT. So what's OT? You mentioned OT.
Yeah,
what's OT?
Yeah, for those that are listening that don't understand that abbreviation, it stands for occupational therapist. So they just deal with different types of activities that deal with motion and coordination, such as speech or grasping things in my case, or writing cursive and different things in my case. But they also do, a multitude of other skills. But that's what an occupational therapist helped me with.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Let's talk about you getting into acting. Like because you knew when you were 6, entertainment was your bag. So then what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically what happened there, I would have intermittent conversations with my family about, because they would always be like, what do you want to be? Are you kind of forming this idea of what you want to be when you grow up? And personally, in some cases, I think we never do grow up because we're artists. And I think we always have to keep that child alive in some cases. But they would always ask me that, because to them, a plan was always very important for later in life as we develop, as we become adults and different things. So they would ask me, and I would say, well, I'd like to, be a performer and be on camera. And then it became, no, it's not just a performer, but I'd like to, be a broadcaster. And then it morphed, oh, well, I really like sports, so I think I'll be a sports broadcaster. But then as I began to go to university and study and, read the classics and understand Shakespeare and understand theater and understand the bigger aspects of cinema and filmmaking, I said, no, I think, being an actor and being able to exercise my artistic way through film and television and writing and comedy and also through drama, that's really what I'd like to do. And although, my family was, very hesitant at first just because of how competitive our industry is, they've just been extremely supportive, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. That's so awesome. And then, your voice is very powerful and very unique. So tell us your journey of, because now with voiceovers, you can do it from home. So you can book these jobs, no matter where you are. How was it for you when you got into voiceovers? When did you find out I could be a voiceover actor?
So that's funny. That story starts when I had an internship when I was 19 years old at the local sports radio station, Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, right here in Ann Arbor. And I was sitting in one of the recording studios. Back then, I guess DJs have a limit of commercials that particular talent can do within a certain amount of time. I don't know what the union restriction is on that at this point. But basically what happened was there was no DJ that could read a particular commercial that they needed right away. And I was doing my internship and I was filling out some things for the commercial spots on one of the computers in one of the recording studios. And immediately, one of the program directors just bolts in and they go, Zach, have you ever read commercials before? We need you to read this. And I look at it. And of course, it's typed for broadcast and typed for our industry, and never seen it before in my life.
And you say, yes, of course I've done that.
Yeah,
of course I can do it.
Exactly, folks. And so they asked me, I said, of course I can do it. Now, here's the funny part. I start doing the take, and because it's typed in all capitals, I start shouting at the top of my lungs because I think it needs to be yelled,
Yeah.
And of course, the other guy, the audio producer,
they think you're excited.
Oh yeah, they think, and they go, wait a minute, Zach, just tone it down. Just read it how you would be talking. And so then I read it. And that was the start, just reading that commercial for Mr. Roof in Ann Arbor. And
Wow. That's so cool. Yeah. That's so cool. That's so neat. Fun. So what are your current projects?
Absolutely. Great question. So, of course, we're still producing Ann Arbor Tonight and doing those wonderful episodes and getting different guests on from around the city and all those great guests that come from Ann Arbor. But then also...
Wait, so just for the dangling fruit, the enticing... bells and whistles, the shiny object syndrome. Sure. Who are some of your maybe memorable experiences that tickled your fancy for creating and meeting certain people that have come on the show?
Oh, that's such a great question, but it's also very hard. Yeah, because
they're all your babies.
Yeah, you value them. But if I had to pick someone, because I really respect the guy, and he's such a cool person, just like you, Katie. I would have to say Mr. Greg Harden. Now, Greg Harden worked for the University of Michigan, and he was an advisor to athletes and a sports psychologist. And so he would advise people like Desmond Howard or Tom Brady. By the way, Tom, congratulations on your retirement. We miss you already, man. We miss you already. But so.
Wow, that's the first shout out to Tom Brady on my show. I feel like so popular now.
You're a Michigan girl, right?
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah. So Greg Harden, and he was so impactful because I asked him, I said, Greg, what do you look for? You counsel all these athletes. They're peak physical specimens, modern day gladiators, right? And then they pretty much have all these things going for them. But what is it that you do that kind of gets them over the hump? He goes, well, Zach, peak athletes are just like anybody else. They have doubts, they have fears, they have all the things that other people have. And he goes, my job is to find out what they need to do to get to the next level. And so when I asked him what you look for in terms of an athlete to be a success, he said, well, Zach, when an athlete comes to the University of Michigan, they're the top. Mm-hmm. They are the top of the top. And so they have great confidence. He goes, but what I look for in the athletes is that they're still coachable. And, I like to apply that to our business and show business as well. I think no matter what you've accomplished in show business or what shows you've done, how many shows on Broadway you've done, how many Emmys or Academy Awards that you've won, you still, as an actor and as a performer, as an artist, you still have to be coachable by any director or by any team that you're working with.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. I love that. I really identify because I think maybe that's why I've been able to do pivot and shift in life, personal and business, because I ran cross country, to be coachable. It's so important. That's great. Love that.
Well, folks, she was the fastest in Michigan at one point, were you?
Yeah, fastest in Michigan, 6th in the nation.
Oh my gosh, see?
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Cool. That's a great story. Okay, so you have the show.
Yes.
Which is famous in Ann Arbor.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. Yes. So we have the show. And then on top of that, we have Zach Damon Productions, which is the production house that, produces Ann Arbor Tonight, our flagship show. But we also produce, voiceover commercials for local brands and then web-based media. We just launched a comedy podcast a couple months ago.
Yeah, I saw that. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm following you guys.
Oh, thank you.
Shout out to the podcast.
That's right. Shout out to Endless Popcorn.
Okay, and we'll put it in the show notes. So,
awesome.
All your materials. We're talking about it now, so you can tell your social media handles, websites, how people can get in contact with you, but it will be in the show notes as well.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. Endless Popcorn, just a lot of fun. I ended up, with Ann Arbor Tonight, you network with a lot of comics, go to a lot of comedy clubs to scout talent that you're going to have, because we have stand-up comedians on the show, because it is a variety show. And I went to the Ann Arbor Comedy Showcase, one of my favorite clubs, my hometown club, and I saw this wonderful comedian. She's been in comedy just over a year, but she's super talented. Her name's Adeline Harvey. And we started talking one night, and she goes, man, we have such fun conversations, Zach. And I said, yeah, it should be a podcast. And she goes, I've always wanted to do a podcast. And so then the next thing you know, about 3 or 4 months later, we're in a studio and recording our pilot episode. So super excited.
Yeah, congratulations. Actually, I've been doing a lot of stand-up comedy in New York the last 8 weeks, and I knew I was going to be in Michigan, so I Googled the stand-up comedy open mic shows, and I actually signed up for the one in Ann Arbor.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome!
Yeah,
yes.
And then they email you if you get selected. So I signed up for next week.
Good.
So we'll see if they select me or not. But
my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you do. But then, if you're not selected, I would still show and see if you can get on the short list.
Let's do it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Absolutely.
We'll go. We'll have to go. I want my mom and dad to come too.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. And then we'll talk offline about the other comedy clubs. Because and then my dad knows about one, but I definitely want to go and because even though I'm not in New York, you can be anywhere.
Oh, for sure.
And do the stand-up comedy. So that's really cool. So you have the comedy podcast. There are a bunch of people I want to turn you on to. So we'll talk about that more. So
sure.
So and then for the production side, you're doing and then do you know Mary Fishoni?
I don't.
Yeah. So she's my very good friend for years. She's like my first agent, but she has an agency. So
cool.
I'm going to hook you up with her immediately when we're done recording. And so you're connected with her.
Okay.
So for voice talent, that's so cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that would be great. And then, and then also, I'm still acting and stuff. So, we recently just wrapped a great romantic indie comedy. going to be on Amazon later this year called Get Real. So
Cool.
super excited. Yeah. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. And just such a great cast. And Christina Morales Hemingway is the director. She's done Naked Angel as well as Bride Plus One. So other romantic indie comedies as well. Just so much fun to work with. I played a supporting role. I was backcountry bartender, but really enjoyed it. And we wrapped all the Michigan scenes late last December.
Great.
Yeah.
And then how is it for you in Michigan? Do you have a representation, or is it because you are a master at networking? Like your Rolodex, you're just like all about that Rolodex. The relationships that you've nourished like throughout the years. We've had conversations about this. Yeah. So did you book that through a personal contact, or did it come through your agency?
Great question. So I booked the particular film based on the personal contact because Christina and I had actually worked on a previous film together, Bride Plus One. So that's kind of how, casting and Get Real came about. But I also do have a management company that sends me casting for different commercials and films and different things out in New York. So,
Cool.
So, but I think, both. I think, not being afraid to network and just tell others about yourself and what you're doing at different events, but then also having good representation too. I think it's a fine balance. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, definitely important. It's like, the agency gets paid 10% if it's union, right?
Right.
And it's important to have a team and people who can look out for you, but no one is going to have the passion and drive and know what you want long-term, your vision, but you. Like no one else will know your design but you.
Right.
So we get to be the captain and the pioneers of our own ship.
Yep, absolutely. And although it can seem, daunting at times, I really think that in many ways it's the way to go, until you're dealing with, bigger entities, and things like that. But I think it's definitely the way to go. And, I never envisioned to be like the captain of my own ship, so to speak, I just wanted to be a part of a great creative team.
Yeah.
And act, in film and television and theater and get paid to travel and make a living doing that. But then, the universe and God has other plans. He says, no, I want you to learn all these other skills too and embrace them.
Well, even more with technology, with social media, for your ethics, your morals, your values, like having a podcast, right?
Yeah.
It's like it goes full circle with acting of your brand, so people know who you are, your
Absolutely.
vibe, what you align with, and then the sound, the tone of your voice for voiceovers as well. It's like a trio, and with the social media, it's a business. It's a social media marketing. It's a tool, and it's not just like posting selfies, but it's what are you posting about? Like my last post I posted talking about World Poetry Day and my poetry book and things of that nature. But then my new book, The Actor. So when you're on social media, how is that tool for you? Are you utilizing the tool? Do you find it difficult? Because it's mentally challenging. A lot of people have a hard time with social media. So how is it for you? Do you do it? Do you have a team? Are you like, how is it? What's going on?
Great question. So first of all, I think you alluded to a great point just before. Talking about the different books. Being multifaceted and having multi branches, I guess, of who you are and your success, I think is going to create longevity. And you've done that. So, I encourage those people that if they say, oh my gosh, I've never done this before, I don't know how to do it, don't just give up on it. Understand that the more skills you have, the better, because then you're more bookable, more employable, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely agree. And then as far as your question on social media, I definitely do find it challenging, especially with, multiple entities, like, trying to constantly keep it, up to date so that those are seeing what you're doing and different things like that. And I don't necessarily have a social media team right now. So it's all myself kind of posting on all the social media platforms for all the work that we're doing. And it can be tough. But what I try to do is just plan like a calendar post that I do, like as often as I can.
Yeah.
And just plan that consistently so that the followers have consistency. And then they know that if they look on a certain time that, they can see that and that'll be there. And then also, I do my best to just be a bridge of success. I think that's a great tool that social media has become for all of us, is that it's not about the competition, in my opinion, of getting the most likes or the most followers, but look at it like a two-way street. Hey, if somebody posts something and you really like it, reshare it for them, help them promote, because then, hey, it can come back to you and they can help do the same thing for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also what you see that inspires you. You want to reshare that because you're amplifying, because you're a part of the ripple effect and you want to align with that. Like I have a friend who has a new movie and the premiere was in New York at an indie house. And I shared that and he saw it, but I shared it because it's like, I'm proud of him. He made a movie. Like that's a big accomplishment.
It is.
And he's a filmmaker and I'm an actor, but it's like, he's good people. And I've been able to witness his journey from afar. And so I'm spreading that so other people will see it and maybe go see the movie and then they share it. So I get to be a ripple effect and we get to move the needle forward together.
Got to do it.
It's not just like, it's like reciprocated for multidimensional ways, more than what we even know. Right. I mean, it could, I didn't even see the film yet, but what if someone sees that film and it makes an impact for like their family or their relationship? And I don't know. And we're helping people in ways that we don't even know, that's out of our control. And that the unknown is really exciting.
Oh, it is. And you're so right. I mean, the impact that the arts can have is just amazing in so many different ways. So I completely agree. And, and I really respect, your intuitiveness about that, about how our actions not just affect ourselves, but it affects others. It's like a ripple in a pond.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Really important.
Absolutely.
And I like what you said, consistency. I have a difficult time with consistency, but I always like joke and say like, I am consistent at being inconsistent.
Oh my gosh.
Because I do so much, but having a scheduler and like, Meta, they have a scheduler that's free. So it's important. But the hard thing for me is like having a team where you can trust them to like post content is one thing. But when you have like the perfectionist syndrome and you want it a certain way, like especially if you're like in fashion or modeling or with colors, aesthetic, and it's your personal brand, you want it a certain way. So it's hard to trust like other people to do it for you. Right. So doing a scheduler program, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks in advance where you sit down and do the bulk of it all is what I am shifting and moving to myself now for the longevity of consistency. Because it's difficult, as emotional beings, as just humans, wanting to post, but your dopamine's low or you're having a low day. And as artists, sometimes we're more introverted or growing through things just as humans. So it's important, the consistency, but how do we apply those tools, right? And how do we find what works for us? Like there's no right or wrong. It's just whatever, if it fits the puzzle, it fits. If it doesn't, it just doesn't. Right?
Oh, completely agree. I mean, I couldn't agree more with what you said. And again, I mean, I think you bring up a great point. I hope that listeners understand that, look, if you are tired, if you are exhausted, that's normal. Get some rest, do what you need to do to replenish. But also, I encourage others to, find ways to not get overwhelmed. And to me, like in production, it's just like production and what we do. Pre-planning is always super important. So like say you're, how do I start a calendar for posting? Well, put it on your Google Calendar, start like that. And, just have it constantly pop up so that even if you forget, boom, a reminder pops up and you can post. But, use your surroundings to your advantage.
Yeah.
And do your best to just understand that everybody has a different journey. Everybody has a different pace. And like you said, artists are different. And if you need time to rest, get healthy.
And a lot of people don't have money, but there's so many tools out there like podcasts, YouTube.
Right.
Like there's so many people are learning how to edit on YouTube. Like there's a YouTube video for anything you want to do.
Oh, for sure.
Like it can't be the excuse of like, oh, you're privileged or you have money. Like I love DJing. And so in your mind, you have to get the best gear and the best equipment. But no, you can get something that's used or secondhand or go to Guitar Center and go there and build your synergy and your energy and make that your focus. And then, you save up little by little to get something used or pre-owned instead of getting creme de la creme of something out of the gate, So I wish I had that advice at a younger age because like I would have been in the Guitar Centers often on DJ, practicing all those DJ gears that you can practice on, right? I did the drums, but I never thought to go to like the controller apartment. I didn't even think about the controller department of the DJ,
Right.
But like, it was like a boys' world. It wasn't like there wasn't DJ music school. I went to DJ music school in 2016, and you played on all the equipment, but still the instructor made me feel insecure. Like I allowed another human to make me feel insecure under the school program. And I went and spent $2,500 on equipment I actually didn't need. And I got insurance on it and I have it and I've used it like 3 times because for me, I like pads. It's like poetry on
Right.
on pads. I like colorful pads.
Yeah.
I don't like actually using a laptop with the controller. For me, mentally, it's hard.
Yeah.
And it's like, I like it all in one.
Right.
So you can apply that, the listener can apply that same principle to whatever they want to do, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's super important.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're right. Everyone learns differently. Everyone creates differently. And so the fact that you use the sound pads versus the laptop and the turntable and, you know, all that with the audio mix all in one. I mean, yeah, it looks overwhelming. It can be overwhelming. And so,
Yeah.
I think as, you know, the listeners tune in, find what works for you and use that. And, you know, if people say whatever, you know, or criticize, you know, that's fine. Everyone has their different opinions, but again, do what works best for you. And, you know, as far as the other comment you made before, like, oh, you've got to have money, or, you know, that person's privileged, they can just buy that. Look, none of that, in my opinion, is a huge deal. I mean, sure, everybody is from different backgrounds and, you know, different circumstances, but if all of us are committed and all of us care about our craft, like the person with the best equipment who has the most resources forever, you know, if they're not committed to music or acting or filmmaking, if they don't do it, they're not going to know. And to me, that's for anybody. It doesn't matter whether you have 6 figures or whether you have $0. What matters is the dedication to your craft, learning, reading, understanding history, and understanding what works for you. And that will make you successful.
Yeah, the key word you said was commitment. By having that commitment, you know, the bells and whistles are important, but aren't that important. It's the commitment. It's the commitment's so important because, like you said, like someone who has access to go buy all the things and it just sits there. It's like, oh, you had the illusion you were able to get it, but it's just sitting there and no one's using it.
Right.
Whereas someone who would like really use it, be in gratitude. And those are the ones people are suffering who don't have it. So sometimes I've been practicing minimalism since you started Zach Damon Productions in 2012. I was practicing minimalism and it's almost better to have less clutter and to be more of a minimalist and work with those raw essential tools, your hands and your brain and certain limited resources, because then that's where you get to really be creative and put things together of the unknown. When you actually have that emptiness or that rawness. That's why they say when you meditate, you're actually supposed to meditate like not on a full stomach, more like on an empty stomach, right? Yeah, you have to be well digested before you're supposed to be meditating. Wow. There's this hunger, this primalness that we have in our beings of being primal and like really going for something, you know?
Right.
So I want to shift into training. So let's talk about your training and media background.
Yeah, absolutely. So aside from, you know, doing the public speaking when I was young, you know, I alluded to how education was super important. So I ended up, you know, studying, you know, reading. I mean, getting books on, you know, the best filmmakers or the best films that I watched, or, you know, studying, you know, Stanislavski and, you know, The Actor Prepares and, you know, different things. And I think, I mean, I went to school, you know, went to film school and then left film school after I felt that, you know, I fulfilled everything that I really needed to out of that. And then applied, because I think the arts, any art, is best by doing. You know, I think understanding critically, you know, art critically and understanding, you know, the differences, you know, between arts is fine. But I think when you're doing a craft such as voiceover or such as, you know, film or theater, they're crafts that are really best by doing. And I think writing is the same way too. Yeah. You know, so many people write a sentence and then what do? We erase it as soon as we write it. And, you know, I think, you know, education has its place to get you going, to sort of teach in some ways, if you don't already know, how to think critically in a certain way, and how to make decisions and discern. But then ultimately, regardless of the education, going to do it is the most important thing. So as far as my education, I have had formal training, you know, in theater, voiceover work, acting, filmmaking.
Where'd you go?
So I went to junior college for a long while. I went to a community college, and then I went to Eastern Michigan University for a while. And then I've also went to the University of Miami, Florida for a little bit. So cool. Jumped around. Yeah. And
Miami life.
No, it was great. It was fun. It was great. But yeah, ultimately, you know, you take as much as you can out of there. But what I learned, at least for me, in the academic setting, they were more about, you know, the academic, you know, book side, and that's fine. And I soaked up as much as I could out of that. But with our field, it's more about doing. So I was more about jumping in and trying to go to the studio and trying to just get work done and learn techniques of the camera, learn how much headspace an interview guest needed. Learning
headspace. What do you mean headspace?
Yeah, so headspace, basically, if you don't have enough headspace, like you're cutting someone off, right? Their head looks flat.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure.
So on camera.
Yeah, on camera. So you want to make sure, as a producer that
it's on the hour.
Yeah, that's right. It's on the hour.
Let's go.
So you want to make sure that everyone just has enough headspace so people's heads don't get cut off, even if they're different heights.
Yeah.
Things like that. And you can only learn really what those techniques are, or a good pan, or things like that, or a good zoom, or how to do a slow pan or a slow zoom. You can only learn those things by doing them, in my opinion, not so much by reading.
Yeah. Well, I love two words. You keep saying like doing. Well, acting it's a verb. It's in action.
Yeah.
That's what we are as human. We're human beings, in action by applying. And I love how you say critical, like critical thinking is, so important because it's the 1 to 100, like that thing in your mind, like, oh, I can do that. But okay, what's the 2 to 99, the in between?
Absolutely. I agree. And, really the best way to learn things, you alluded to the YouTube videos, but my grandfather growing up, he would say, look, Zach, education is very important. But to get a foundation, if you really understand language, you can read a book and understand how to do something if you know how to read and, apply that knowledge. And sure, you'll make mistakes, but you can still learn how to do it. So my grandfather would say, well, if you know language and you know how to read, you can learn anything you want. And it's really true.
Great advice from Grandpa. Love that.
That's right.
So honing it in here, what are 1 or 2 books that with the craft that you want to recommend to someone to read or listen to on audio?
Sure.
And or just like a spiritual book or just a mentorship book that really supported your journey along the way? It could be for the craft or personal.
Sure. Man, I'll give a couple personal because I think for me, from my experience, it's been, more about me personally just continuing to set goals and stick to those and different things. So and it's a very short read, but Don Miguel Ruiz, The 4 Agreements. Love that book. I still go back and read it all the time because it's super important.
Don't take anything personal.
Yes.
Number 1.
That's right. Always do your best.
Number 4.
That's right.
Be impeccable with your word.
Impeccable with your word.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there you go. And again, those principles really do work and they are amazing.
Yeah.
So I recommend that short read to everyone.
Yeah.
And then I'm reading a great book right now by Tim Grover, who is the trainer for Michael Jordan as well as Kobe Bryant and other athletes. It's called Winning. And it basically talks about how in everyone's different lives, winning is different, but winning is never a goal. It always moves. So the point then is being like, keeping your drive, keeping your goal setting and how you really get to bigger goals that you really want to achieve. And so I've really enjoyed that book as well by Tim Grover. So both of those, I would say, the 4 Agreements and Winning.
Okay, great. And lastly here, and then I would love to have you back on the podcast. We'll talk more, but we'd definitely just love to highlight your duty roles with Astro Access. So when did you get involved with them? And let's talk about Astro Access for a few moments. I had the opportunity to meet some of the people when I was at Art Basel in Miami. And that's so wild that you're, a deputy and let's talk about your role there.
Yeah. So I'm so excited to be working with them. It just so serendipitous how that came about. I've always had a fascination with flight and space. My grandfather was a pilot in World War II and worked on bombers as a pilot in the Army Air Corps. As a corporal. So a lot of good history there. And then, I just one summer a couple of years ago, I actually was applying for the flight crew. I wanted to be on the flight crew for one of their zero gravity missions. And I thought that would be really neat because I always wondered, as a person who uses arm crutches, and has a difficult time at times navigating this world of gravity, I always thought to myself as a youngster, gosh, in space, there is no gravity. And so everyone is like even. And so I'm sure that I could just do so many more things and be so much more capable in space rather than on this gravitational pull of our planet. So I was always very fascinated and always really had thought, gee, even though I'm limited here physically with gravity, with my disability in space, everyone is on an even playing field and your legs aren't even needed. So I should be, doing great things. And so I applied. I wasn't, I mean, it's very, very tough selection. People apply from all around the world to be a part of the flight crew. But long story short, I joined a few of their committees, and then I was very fortunate to be asked to be their deputy director of development. So I got involved with the organization, helped them with a lot of development things leading up to their flight in 2022 in Houston, which was a huge success. And then they're doing another flight coming up in May in conjunction with MIT in Boston. So just a lot of great things. I really love working in development, and really, I just give credit to the organization and to the team.
Yeah.
And, when you were there, they were doing a fundraiser for art, and raising money for the mission that way with Sawyer Rosenstein, who's an amazing, amazing guy. I've only, we all work remotely across the world and around the country. So the only time we really interact with one another is when we have a full mission and a full team is needed. So, we don't see each other as much as we'd like, but we do our best to keep in touch. And that's so great that you connected with him.
Yeah, shout out to Sawyer. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that has been a very impactful episode. We'll definitely love to have you on in the near future, and we can go more in depth with Astro Access and more about your career and life. Zach Damon, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Katie, for having me on She's All Over the Place. I do appreciate it. And folks, please listen and follow her on all of the social media platforms. She's all over the place. Katie, you're doing great things.
Thanks. I was so deep in, I forgot. Yes, please make sure you're liking, subscribing, share this episode with at least 1 to 3 people on social media platforms, and look at the show notes so you can connect with Zach and check out his podcast.
Thank you so much. Good vibes to you.
Ciao.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Kitty at Key, over and out.